Right, welcome. This is to our informal discussion and question and answer period. We're down to the hardcore group of people who are really engaged. We'll wait for another minute or so, but I want to thank Judy, Julianne, and Yan for their expertise and taking this large amount of time out to share with us. Thank you all. I think the presentations have been really informative, and I definitely feel more up to date than I did at the beginning of the session. So I think we've achieved our goals. Let me start out with Judy, if you're back yet. Judy, are you with us?
I am.
So
my lunch.
I know I'm noshing on a hard-boiled egg. So, Judy, hearing Julianne and Yan's talk, as one of the leaders in the field, what questions do you have, or what unanswered questions are that the devices that Jian and Yan informed us about might help answer some of those things, or just open questions for your colleagues, and then we can open it up to the other participants.
Well, they're wonderful presentations, and they are really on the cutting edge. Yan, I'd love to hear, actually, the one piece that I feel like we didn't hit on that much was the, and maybe both of you have experience with the remote breathalyzer with the facial recognition and how that seems to work. I think it's sort of interesting to like the PeTH stuff goes in one direction, like I had the sort of retrospective and prospective, and the biosensors goes in another direction, and I think they have different purposes. And I think that there's some issues out there around those, say you go to your doctor and they think you're drinking too much, but you say you're not, and they could do a PeTH test potentially, and then a week, 2 weeks later tell you your results and say, I want to discuss this. Would they be able to get you to wear a biosensor? I don't know. I think that the different purposes and the different vagaries are interesting, and I actually think also that the patient interface issues, as we move beyond the research tools, but how will these work in practice? And these are, I think, sensitive topics. I'm really, if anyone has experiences with that or discussions on that, I'd love to hear.
I don't know if you have anything, but I can add if you don't.
So Yan, do you have what are your impressions?
And so in terms of the facial recognition, the software, so we are actually going to use it in the PO1 project. So we actually haven't tested everything out. So we met with the backtrack people, and they showed us how the video, the facial recognition works. And I think that, as Judy said, that's kind of in the middle of completely passive monitoring and in person, you can do a blood test. So I feel like that's still a lot of participant burden. So whenever they're pinned down to do a breathalyzer reading, they need to get access to the software, they need to upload the video they blow into the breathalyzer, and then actually someone, so it's not totally automated process, the facial recognition with the backtrack view. So actually they told us someone need to review the video and verify this is the participant. So one of our research staff member actually needs to do that. And I heard there is some other company that does the automated facial recognition, but I don't know if that's something I have no knowledge beyond the backtrack view, because that's the company I talked with. So yeah.
I can add something too. I work with Amy Conroy, and we're going to be doing a study in South Africa. We're just in the beginning phases, but in South Africa with couples. And so when you set up with the backtrack view, you can set up a monitor, and that's the person who schedules the tests and gets the report of the test. But you can also set up an accountability partner. And so their spouse will be their accountability partner. So the video will go to both the monitor, which will be me, and the accountability partner. And so we don't need to do automated facial recognition because their spouse will know, you know, they're accountable to their spouse as well. So that's kind of one advantage, but it's a pretty heavy technology burden, especially because they only work on iOS, and folks in South Africa don't use Apple devices. So we have to kind of teach them how to use Apple and teach them how to use the device. Yeah, the other kind of one disadvantage of the backtrack breathalyzers too is that you get there are three outcomes of a test. One is passed, meaning that your BAC is 0, fail, which means your BAC is above 0, or missed the test. And so it's really looking at an abstinence model, whereas some of our couples may want to be looking at more of a moderation model. And so that'll be just another aspect of training, is teaching them that just because it says fail, if your BAC is 0.01 or something like that, maybe, you know, you have to with the counselor, they can set their own criteria for what a fail is, but the message will be, you failed. So that's, yeah. And we're just getting started with this. Amy and I have been testing each other so far. I'll just mention too, one real disadvantage is that the videos are so unattractive. You just look so bad in these videos because of the way you have to hold the phone. And so I think that's, yeah, luckily it's just Amy and me seeing the
that's a disincentive.
Right, it's a little bit of a disincentive because it's really the worst possible selfie you can take.
So I was using the old scale backtrack handheld breathalyzers along with iOS and an app we built. They've got newer models that are quite small, that are Bluetooth enabled. Does anyone, you know, where you can actually, you can, yeah, even I mean they're keychain size ones. Wonder if anyone had any experience with those, because I was investigating doing some normative feedback, you know, with kind of those keychain ones. And anyone have an experience using those? But Rita, that it looks like you're using one of those backtrack Bluetooth ones, but a slightly larger model.
Yeah, it's Bluetooth enabled, and yeah, and you just blow into this, and then you have to turn it on, and it automatically connects to Bluetooth. And it doesn't start, it doesn't give you the cue to blow until your face is in the middle of the phone. So you can't use the device without the phone. They're totally, they totally intersect.
There's a whole range of technology for breathalyzers, Edwin, so you probably want, you can get something very cheap, but you might get what you pay for.
Yeah, we chose this model because it enables both the monitor and the accountability partner, because it's a dyadic intervention. So we wanted to be able to loop the partner in.
Yeah, great.
I know Mike McDonald is also developing an app for breathalyzers on your phones, but I don't know all the details around it. So I'm not actually working on that study. But to go kind of back to, you know, user friendliness and how approachable some of these techniques are, with this telehealth format that we're using, we've actually had some of the best study retention that we've ever had with our contingency management studies. And what's been really interesting in some of the, now that we're kind of looking at through the demographics of the data, because our recruitment's done, is to realize how many of our participants are treatment naive. And so we're starting to wonder if it's like this ability to have this private, you know, intervention that is really attractive to many of our participants. Of course, it's a very small sample right now, so we need to do a much larger study to see if that holds true. But also just that it can be flexible with work. Individuals don't have to take off time to come into the clinic to do their drug test. Nobody has to know they're in the intervention if they don't want to have anybody know about that. So it can be very private. And so we found like a third, I think, so far of our participants are treatment naive that are coming to this study.
Yeah, I also wanted to add on the remote data collection. So it's really, COVID taught us a lot of things. Remote data collection is one of the things. So we were actually able to mail the device, sometimes with the smartphone, to our participants that is not local, and then they were able to just learn how to use the device via Zoom meeting with our staff member, and they can just do the 2-week field use on their own, and we collect good data from the participants and they mail back the device to us. So I think a lot of the technology-based assessments really allow us to expand our recruitment to bigger geographic area, and also allow a lot of data collection during the pandemic. So I think that's, lesson learned.
Great. Other questions from remaining attendees for our panel?
I just want to say this is just really cool and innovative work. It's really exciting to get to listen to all three of you present what you're doing today. And you've definitely got my wheels turning as to how I could try and use some of these tools in the future. I'm kind of just starting my biomarker journey, and I work pretty much just in sub-Saharan Africa, and I'm interested in trying to get objective measures of alcohol use in pregnant women. And so, I don't so much have a question, more just wanted to thank you for kind of giving me, more food for thought on what is out there. And I think the real challenge is on my end, is trying to think about how some of these novel resources could be used in a resource limited setting, and to what end as well, which is something I've been thinking around, even with the PETH use in our samples. That's great and it's interesting, and we'll be able to kind of get a more accurate estimate of alcohol use during pregnancy, and we're using a threshold just to identify any alcohol use at all, because all alcohol use that's in that circumstance is harmful. But really trying to think about, okay, so where are the next steps though? It's costly, and what can we do with this information, and could we use it to incentivize people to at least report more honestly? And so then maybe we don't need to collect it moving forward. And so I'm just really glad this was a really, really great workshop. I just wanted to say thank you to all three of you for putting together such great presentations.
Great, thank you.
I was going to say along those lines, I mean, I think the dream is to be able to have participants go, at least with contingency management, say, your doctor says, oh, we're going to put you in this intervention. You need to go to this drugstore on these days, give your sample. And it's just that easy. Walk in, they take a sample, they walk away. And, it could be less management on researchers' ends to do it as far as sampling and implementing, really get this intervention out into the community and make it more integrative part of medicine. I think long-term is really a great avenue for this research, making it more cost efficient in that regard.
I had a question for Yan. So for the skin biosensors and the transdermal alcohol, do you think where we're at in the field, do you think those are ready for research use, or do you think it's still in the proof of concept, more correlation studies needed?
I think we're ready for research use. We have, so if I don't know if you probably won't I don't know, you probably haven't been following the papers, but there are several papers published, including a couple from our group that look at the correlation. So in general, we found good correlation between the TEC readings from the skin biosensor and more like classic breath alcohol concentration readings. The challenge is how to really convert it to BAC level. That's a lot of like researchers like final goal, they really want to figure that out. But as I said, if we're not really trying to figure that out before we look at the TEC reading as a predictor of behavior consequences or health outcomes, maybe we can just utilize the TEC readings as is and try to figure out like what is maybe the threshold for high risk drinking, and also I think there are still challenges in data analysis, but the tool itself, the monitor itself, I think it's ready for research use. So that's kind of like the bottom line. I think it's ready for data collection from participants in the field. It's just we still need more work to interpret the readings and ideally automate the analysis from of the data from those the skin biosensor.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. And we've got a question from Dr. Nealance. Tor.
Hi, so this has been really fantastic, and there's such a plethora of measures now. And one question I had, being interested in multivariate statistics and multiple measures and latent variables, I always kind of tend to think this way, but I was wondering if there were like pairs or triads or like 4, or even 5 measures that you guys think could be well used in combination to get better inferences than just using one alone. Or is your opinion that the added expense and burden to the study and burden to the participants isn't really justified by like an incremental gain that you would get from going from 1 measure to 2 measures or 2 measures to 3 measures?
Judy.
Yeah, that's a great question, Tor. And I think not just participant burden, but thinking about costs. That and like I said before, everything I say is framed in like what you want to use it for. A lot of these, I think like the breathalyzer and the sensors are more for sort of like intervention, like a contingency management type intervention. Whereas some of our research, we just want to know like what the behavioral intervention did. And in that sense, I do think that the field is ripe to try to use, our most advanced statistical tools we have to put together what we have. Early on I said, we don't use these ALT, AST. Well, maybe we could actually, we can get enough data together and do some, advanced statistics. Maybe we can put measures together to get something cheaper and efficient. And it's not any more participant burden if it's the same blood draw. So I do think that even though PEth is my favorite, I don't think it's the end all be all, and I would love to like go beyond PEth. For my favorite for that kind of research measurement.
We'll say with
Julianne?
PET, thank
And
you.
potentially clinically too, that a doctor could have this is your alcohol panel, and this shows that, maybe you should be trying to get these numbers down.
We're actually looking at 3 different PEth homologs with our current study. And so it kind of comes back to what Judy was saying, like, if it's the same sample, how much information can you get out of that sample? And the reason why we're looking at 3 different homologs is because they have different half-lives and are informing, alcohol use differently. And so the team down in Texas was just like, hey, we want to run a bunch of different things, a PEth panel with these samples. And so it'll be interesting to see what we get out of that. And, I think it depends on the measure and why, like Judy was saying too, like the ETG dipstick is extremely cheap to conduct. And, but that added an interesting element to the study as well, for very low cost. one of the, looking at is how much these biomarkers agree over time, and what can they tell us about everything from metabolism to individual differences with alcohol use, things along those lines. And so I think it really comes down to the question and the cost.
Yeah, and also I think a lot of studies probably are already collecting multiple alcohol measures, so at least self-report and some objective measures. So I think how to really utilize different sources of information, that's kind of a next challenge. So for example, in the 30-day challenge, we have the gram biosensor data, we have self-report, and we have ETG and PeTH. So if two of them don't agree with each other, we have the third one kind of verify and try to see like which two actually agree better. But eventually, how do we actually leverage all the data? Is that going to be a latent variable created from all the measures, or like what is the best way if we are already collecting multiple measures? I think that's another kind of question we need to think as researchers.
Great. Well, fantastic. And now just to finish us out, I like to end on a high note, and I'd like to ask each of the panelists, like, in the realm of alcohol biomarkers and what you're doing and what others are doing, like, what are you most excited about going forward? Just briefly, and we'll go in reverse order that we heard from him. So Yan, what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about the potential that we can use these biosensors in just-in-time intervention. That's like the ultimate dream study I want to do. So if one day we can tell our participants that take this device home, set up your phone for this intervention. We will give you alerts when we feel like you're at risk for high risk drinking. Yeah, so it's like the ultimate goal is actually we can deploy these biosensors for actual intervention, and that's not going to be very high cost, like intensive in-person sessions, but everybody can utilize the intervention in their daily life, and it's right there to help them. So that's like what I'm most excited about.
And Julianne, what are you excited about?
I'm at the beginning of my alcohol biomarker career here, so there's a lot that really excites me about the field of study, but more along the lines of what this telehealth study has shown us is just, the pandemic was really challenging and terrible, and yet there have been some incredible advancements in how we're implementing medicine, and the idea that we can now take this intervention and access individuals in rural areas that would have not had access to alcohol treatments in the past are now going to have access, but also that we can implement it across the nation. I mean, that's really an amazing idea too. And that I think long term, it would be really exciting to see insurance companies start to cover this type of intervention, because it's very provider user friendly as well, and can be implemented, from going to your doctor's office or your local pharmacy. So I'm really hoping, I know Mike McDonald is working really hard on getting the word out on contingency management and doing a lot of trainings right now to train providers on contingency management. So the hope is really, to not only be doing this research, but make it able to be implemented in the community.
Great. Policy implementation. Excellent. And Judy, what are you most excited about going forward?
I love all this work. I think my first, what I would like to see, where I'd like to see my work go. I would like to be able to have a low cost biomarker that you could do in your doctor's office, like blood sugar, that will be part of your chart and part of so just to get the ball rolling, and then we could move on to Julianne's and Jan's interventions once you get those, and then you could, you know, get your blood sugar again at the end and see like, yeah, I really did it. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, again, a big round of applause for all our experts and dedicating the time to be with us and educate us and answer our questions. We're really appreciative. Thank you for allowing us to record this for people who weren't able to attend for other reasons. And we'll be in touch. We're going to be sending out a poll asking people in true quality, continuous quality improvement, like how this worked for people, what could we do better. And then stay tuned for our next series of methods core workshops. We're going to be doing another biomarker update, this time focusing on the plethora of ART adherence, both for treatment and PrEP markers, and a big number of participants of that are coming out of Monica and Hideaki Okochi's hair lab. And so we'll be, that probably will be occurring next month, we think. And then, of course, we'll also be doing some of our different methods workshops, one on discrete choice experimentation, almost a half-day workshop with experts in that. And then on the computational biology front, a session on natural language processing by Dr. Will Brown and colleagues from the Baker Computational Science. So thank you all for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.